Well, now it looks like he's a glutton.
Yep.
He's got two thumbs.
Yep.
Two-fisted.
Double fist him.
You guys ready?
Can be a verb.
Probably.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with some colleagues and a special guest.
Hello, I'm Carrie. Still.
And I'm still Ryan.
Dave.
Still Dave?
Maybe.
Yeah.
So we have a request from ZMax, who wants to know what do you do when you have a campaign that the players are beginning to move the story or the world in a different direction than what was originally planned? So what do we think?
How do you change directions? Well, I can definitely see where there's GMs that'll have a problem with this, especially if you're that GM that plans out from level 1 to level 20. You got this huge campaign arc, and it has to see its way to the end.
Don't make plans. Your PCs will fuck you over every single time.
Pretty much.
End the video.
Yeah. So basically, my standpoint is whenever you have a story arc, you need to work in small pieces, and you need to absolutely be willing to make changes to your plan. You need to be willing to make changes based on what the players do, so that number one, your world and your story are interactive with exactly what the players are doing. No player wants a railroaded story. So if the players decide, okay, well, I'm going to go off arc, or I'm going to totally screw over the DM and do something completely against what he has planned,
Or she.
Or she. Well,
Sexist pig.
Yeah, really. You're terrible.
I'm sorry. I was advocating the raping in the last video, and you know what? You can have the women raping the sheep too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Those poor sheep. Who advocates for the sheep?
Nobody advocates for the sheep. Nobody is a sheepist.
So when your player, be it a he or a she, is going against what you're doing, you really just have to work with them and let it go, and let the story run its course. If the players change your world in a way that you don't like, fix it between now and the next campaign that you run, not next session. Let the story arc go, and then either retcon that, okay, well, in your timeline that happened on a different plane or whatever else, and all is fine, or totally own it, make it your own, and say, look, you guys were in this campaign, this is what you did, this is the effect that previous session or previous campaign had on this entire world, and then they'll feel more a part of it. Because exactly what happened was by their hand, they did it.
Well, yeah, if their objective for that session was to rescue the princess and they didn't, next session her head shows up in a box, be like, well, you guys didn't do that thing, the world.
There's consequences.
You got to live with those consequences.
And that being said, though, that doesn't mean that you don't have. See, when I write a campaign, I write like 3 sentences. That's it, because I know it's never going to survive the players. And frankly, sometimes things just come up, and it's just cooler.
Mm-hmm.
I in one session I planned this hag encounter, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and they were supposed to totally be adversaries, but the role playing that was going on was so much cooler. I actually just turned them into friendly NPCs. So, part of your job as a DM is to help tell a story with your players. The key there is help tell the story with your players. You can't tell it to them.
Yep.
They're going to do what they're going to do. They have to have agency in your world. They have to be able to make choices that mean something. And if all you do is constantly steer them back to this thing or that thing, none of their choices ever mean anything.
Well, if you're going to program the adventure, because essentially if there's only one set way of how things can unfold, you're programming the adventure. Why play a tabletop role-playing game hobby over an MMO, or any other video game?
Read a book.
You and your friends can all LAN party and play through WoW or whatever, because that is all set. Everything is going to unfold exactly how the programmer is meant to do it. And if you're playing a game where people will have free will and choice, infinite number of choices, then that's the beauty of the hobby. And indulge in that.
Know what I've told people? You just said read a book.
Yep.
I told people don't bother write a book, because that's what you want. I mean, if you want to just tell your story, then you don't really need the players. They're not gonna interact with the world and do what they want to do.
If just pawns to play out your narrative, there's nothing interesting about
Look
that.
at you using props.
Yeah,
picked up a rock.
I did. Yeah, well.
Yeah, this isn't a real chess game.
Yeah, there's pawns stacked over each other, having a little wild party here and stuff. So.
Stonehenge is going on. Yeah.
Well, you know,
We're
when-
chess masters.
when you're running a game, you know, as a DM, you know, you are Lord and Master over the world, but the story and the happenings of that world are just as much in control of in the hands of control of the players as much as yourself, if not more so with the players, because all you're doing is guiding them down a trail or down a path, and they're choosing which direction to go.
Well,
And I like to have different. I like to plot alternatives, like, you know, the choose your own adventure book kind of thing. Well, if they go down this way, you know, this is going to happen. If they go down this way, that's going to happen. And yeah, they're only going to get to pick one or the other. But maybe that other thing that you kind of sort of half planned happens in the next game.
Yeah.
So you're kind of prepared for it.
Yeah. So I was gonna. Yeah, I totally lost. my train
Before
of thought.
before I
Yeah,
evolved or
Yeah.
devolved to
Yeah.
the 3-sentence rule,
yeah.
I used to do flowcharts.
Yeah.
And it's just like that, a couple words, maybe a sentence, and you know, there was different paths. If they did this or did that, you know, it changed the direction of everything. And there was different options.
I used to do an outline. You know, this is the order at which, you know, I see the campaign going, and at any point in time, they could, you know, split off from what I have planned, and then the rest of the night is just improv on me.
Yep.
You know, and I'm just you know prepared. The session that I ran, you know, last weekend was totally okay. It's either going to be they uncover more information on the blood cultists and see how far they get, or
Wait a minute, you mean to tell me that you didn't have in your notes Scott uses his familiar
No.
with locate object to
Nope.
triangulate where the blood cultist dagger is?
No,
The GPS that.
my notes were either they're going to go fight the blood cultists and possibly, you know, track to Jalek, or they're going to go hunt for the golden hands. That was it. That was my prep notes.
Yeah.
That's it, and it was all here. I didn't write.
Thankfully, we did one of those two things.
Right.
And if they did something completely different, then I would have just, you know, completely rolled with it.
And then you got to roll with it, and you just let them go in their own little path. And I like to have one or two things that I just kind of, you know, keep in my pocket for when they do that. And then, you know what, if they're really going in the wrong direction, which I think is the crux of the question here, you know what, you let them play out the end of the night, and then you start the next session with, you know, your characters have been having all these dreams, your God sent you this dream, you're feeling really guilty about this unfinished business, and
Or
you-
the consequences of that thing that they didn't do.
Yeah.
haunt them. You know,
or
really.
yeah, it physically comes back to haunt them. It's
Well,
not just
yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I would say like the head of the princess or the whatever. Like something dire happened, and now the king sent you on that errand, and in lieu of getting his daughter back because she's now decaffeinated.
oh
the-
no, that's even worse than
Yeah, I know, right?
decapitated.
So yeah, in lieu of getting his beloved daughter back, they're now after you because it's now your fault. You're as much to blame as the person that
Yeah,
just
so-
did the deed.
Someone's got to go down. for
Yeah,
this.
heads are got to roll.
But that being said, you can like work your way into those extreme circumstances. You know, the penalty for their failure. You can start training your players too that there is consequences and start off small.
Like monkeys with typewriters.
Like monkeys with typewriters. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's only a finger. You know,
Well, you know
instead
what?
of the head.
Maybe they need to find a way now to resurrect the princess. You
Right,
know, her head's in a box. Fix it. This is your next quest.
Yeah, make this
Tourism
We have to make
and
this right.
one thing. Make
Yes.
that one thing, and living and breathing and eating.
Yeah. The other thing, you know, you would say is, you know, you could say, you know, oh well, next session this starts happening. You know, there's also another phase that a lot of DMs don't really think about or look into.
The untap phase.
Yeah.
Okay.
and that's in between sessions.
Yeah.
You know whether you are gaming online or whether you're gaming, you know, local, reach out and talk to your players and say, okay, what is your character looking to do next session? You know, regardless of whether you play with downtime or whether you play, you know, okay, well, we ended here, we pick up right here,
Like 24 or
you
something.
know, yeah. You know, I talk to you guys. I'm like, you know, what are you looking to do to find this guy you're looking for? What are you doing to try and find the golden hands?
And your
You know,
goddamn business.
You talk to your players so that you have a gauge of
where
what
you
they're-
need to go.
of where you need to go as a DM so that you can have things prepped. And if your players say, well, all right, well, we killed the princess, or we didn't save the princess and therefore let her die, we want to hightail her out of here. We want to get on the next boat, the next, you know, wagon, whatever, and get to the next town over because we're fearing for our lives.
Yeah.
And all right, well, now the campaign arc moves in a whole new direction, and you know that you have to build the next town, and you have to build a whole new story where there's this past that's going to be hunting them, as well as, you know, fame and glory somewhere else under these new names.
Right. Basically, you only really plot out your material if you're going to do all that much prep work, like 1 or 2 sessions ahead of time, you know, and because they could totally go off the so-called rails of whatever you're going to do. And you just, I mean, not necessarily, even if you write something, though, there might be a way to like re-engineer that, reuse it. Like, all right, well, it was going to be this evil doom cult, but now they're going to be an evil group of druids or whatever. So you just like reskin the encounter that you just made and figure out how that's, you know, it's going to work into the story that your players want to engage in and tell.
Now, the other thing, too, is like we're putting all the pressure on the GM. You know, the players can, too, go, like if they decide they're going to do something completely different and they know they're going to throw the GM a curveball, why not give them a heads up?
Yep.
Why not say, you did this thing, you know, in your campaign, and this is how my character reacts?
You know, although I've had players like where it is like an us versus them sort of thing, like the GM versus like everybody playing the game, where like they were like plotting and planning what they wanted to do in my game, but didn't want to tell me because they thought like I would just thwart everything they did.
That was that's my family game.
Yeah. Yeah, like they're conspiring together, and then you're like, all right, well, I guess you've just walked around that encounter. Congratulations, you beat the NPC without a single die roll, and I guess we're done playing the game. 20-minute session, done.
They won't do that again, though.
Yeah, right.
One of the best game masters I worked with gave us a homework assignment in between every game, was to send them an email and tell them if your character was happy with how the session played out and what your character's goals are for the next session.
If they were not happy, could they file a grievance?
Yeah.
Well, you could just not play again. But no. It's more like, you know what, my character really wanted to accomplish this thing, but, you know, we were pulled in that direction, so I didn't get a chance to do that. And that'll let you know that, you know what, at some point, maybe I should let so-and-so eventually accomplish this goal. Maybe not the next session, but, you know, somewhere down the road, let's let it happen.
Great advice. I've seen other GMs do that where they're like, you know, what is your, you know, what's your bucket list moment that you want to see happen?
Yep.
And then they try and work it in at some point.
Yep.
You know, when you're running one shots, I mean that's one of the things that you know, happens far more often. So that, you know, it's like, all right, well, you're not going to get to play this character again. You know, what do you want to see happen so that he can make it happen? You know, when you're doing a you know, a larger campaign arc, you know, then it's like, all right, well, I don't need to cram it in, you know, to night session, but I can definitely see.
Yeah, you can plan it out. But if your GM doesn't know, he can't put it in there.
Right.
Like in your game, you know, my guy got my dwarf got a hold of a cursed evil dagger. He murdered a couple people with it.
I won one, right? I think.
Yeah, well,
Or a couple.
one was straight up murder. The other ones were kind of like
It's self-defense.
Self-defense.
They had it coming.
They fell upon my dagger. I'm just saying.
10 times.
10 times.
They had clubs and stuff.
Yeah.
It was it was all good.
Yeah.
So, but then the next day I woke up. I was covered in blood. I didn't have the dagger anymore. I was fully aware of what had happened.
Thursday
my character's
night.
lawful good. I'm like, Ted, my character's going to turn himself into the mayor.
You know, if he wouldn't have told me that, I would have been like, how am I going to handle this? You know, and since we record our gameplays, it's like, well, So it was definitely.
Well, that's not even relevant. Like that has no bearing on the fact of whether, as a player, I decided to be a jerk off or not, and be like, I'm going to do this whole thing that I know is going to completely disrupt your campaign, and not tell you about it. I'm going to wait and be like, surprise, and you'll be like, all right, either, you know, I need to wait for another session or I need 30 minutes to think about this. No, why not just let you know ahead of time so you can decide what you're going to do with it? And I'm like, and I worded like this: do I need to have a backup character?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like it could have been like an NPC of the town, like a town guardsman or whatever that was like also on the case or something like that. Like there's other ways to field it.
Yeah. See, when your players totally go off the trail, you can always throw a meteor at them.
It's true.
That does work.
That's what you
Just
needed, that
work.
backup character.
Oh, what?
Or a choker.
Or a choker.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
The choker was already there, in all fairness.
Sounds like one of those backup plans that you just keep in there for when you need to pull it out.
Well, it falls back to never split the party.
Yeah.
Oh,
That could be
that's
dire
like a bad
consequences.
horror movie.
Well, especially when you
player-
go off by yourself.
Oh.
It's a little-
Player ran from one combat into an unexplored area, met a choker, died.
And
That's
it was not love at first sight, at least for not for him anyway.
Mm.
So what are we talking about? Oh, when things change direction.
So did we cover it? Did we get it back on
I
course?
think so. I think the biggest problem with this is when you, as a GM,
Write
plan-
too damn much.
plot too much
Yeah.
and do too much work, and you have this grand design, and it doesn't come to fruition, or or during play things just happen to change. So if you just stay a little bit ahead of your players, you can kind of big picture it out in a paragraph.
Be a
tops.
hollow reed that will bend with the breeze. I mean, like, although I will say that, like, it is cool to have those big payoff moments later where you have to do foreshadowing or seed some stuff. So you kind of figure that out, and you're just kind of working out how you can put those little like Easter eggs in the game.
But here's my main thing, right?
Yeah.
And I actually worked with Ted a lot on this. Is you do not make that 20th level character NPC that they're going to fight at the end and spend 3 hours, 4 hours building it, because there's no point if you don't know if they're ever going to get to it.
Right.
Yep.
You write his name down, maybe a couple facts about him. Maybe you make a couple notes about how you believe the campaign arc is going to go. But at the end of the day, if you write a page or less and it doesn't happen, you're not going to be that invested. It's not a big deal. You can go with whatever's going to happen. And a lot of times, something cooler will happen, and that's why the players are going in that direction.
Yeah.
They're going in another direction because whatever you put before them isn't enough to get them vested in it.
It didn't engage their character enough, usually.
Right, but wherever they're going did, so why not just give them that?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'd
It's all
say-
about making your players happy. Making the DM happy, but the players happy. Everybody wants to be happy, or you stop playing the game.
You plan small, be prepared for improv.
Think big, plan small. There you go.
Think big, plan small. Be prepared for improv, and let the players guide the story, because ultimately, it's a group game, and there's more players than there are DMs. So
I think that covers it.
All right.
So you guys, let us know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know what to do.
you can follow us on Twitter.
Or hang out with us over on Facebook.
I have no endorsements.
All right. Yeah.
So until next time, stay nerdy.
Well, now it looks like he's a glutton.
Yep.
He's got two
Yeah.
cups.
Yep.
Two-fisted,
Double fist him.
You guys ready?
Can be a verb.
probably.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with some colleagues and a special guest.
Hello, I'm Carrie.
The video. Yeah.
So
We're done.
basically, my standpoint is, whenever you have a story arc, you need to work in small pieces, and you need to absolutely be willing to make changes to your plan. You need to be willing to make changes based on what the players do, so that number one, your world and your story are interactive with exactly what the players are doing. No player wants a railroaded story. So if the players decide, okay, well, I'm going to go off arc, or I'm going to totally screw over the DM and do something completely against what he has planned,
Or she.
or she,
Or
yeah.
she.
Well,
Sorry, still.
And I'm still Ryan.
Dave,
Still Dave?
maybe.
Yeah.
So we have a request from ZMax, who wants to know, what do you do when you have a campaign that the players are beginning to move the story or the world in a different direction than what was originally planned? So what do we think?
How do you change directions? Well, I can definitely see where there's GMs that'll have a problem with this, especially if you're that GM that plans out from level 1 to level 20. You've got this huge campaign arc, and it has to see its way to the end.
Don't make plans. Your PCs will fuck you over every single time.
Pretty much.
Plain or whatever else, and all is fine, or totally own it, make it your own, and say, look, you guys were in this campaign, this is what you did, this is the effect that previous session or previous campaign had on this entire world. and then they'll feel more a part of it. Because exactly what happened was by their hand they did it.
Well, yeah, if their objective for that session was to rescue the princess and they didn't, next session her head shows up in a box, be like, well, you guys didn't do that thing, you know. The world
There's
goes on.
consequences.
You got to live with those consequences.
And that being said, though, that doesn't mean that you don't have. See, when I was pig,
Yeah, really, you're terrible.
I'm sorry. I was advocating the raping in the last video, and you know what? You can have the women raping the sheep too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh,
those poor sheep. Who advocates for the sheep?
Nobody advocates for the sheep. Nobody is a sheepist.
So when you're a player, be it a he or a she, is going against what you're doing, you really just have to work with them and let it go, and let the story run its course. If the players change your world in a way that you don't like, fix it between now and the next campaign that you run, not next session. Let the story arc go, and then either retcon that, okay, well, in your timeline that happened on a different